let's okay, first question. We're going to get into the plagues. They began in chapter 7, verse 14. Continued through 11, then we got the Passover in 12, chapter 12, which is connected with the 10th plague. Have the plagues ever puzzled you? Is this kind of a divine power trip? Has it ever struck you though?
Aggressive negotiations.
Aggressive negotiations, yeah. Do not negotiate with her. Okay. And it can easily seem like that. That God's sort of power trip and, will show who's boss. If you dig a little deeper, though, you'll find that many of the plagues correlate with Egyptian deities. And keep in mind, they were there for some 400 years. And I didn't comment on this last week. When Moses, the burning bush, chapter 3 of Exodus, says, you want me to go lead these people out? Which God should I tell them sent me? When they ask, what is his name? What shall I say? You mainly see in there that, what's going on, or most likely, is that after 400 years of a polytheistic culture, if they believe in Yahweh, or God at all, he's still one amongst others. He's one among many. So that question, what name shall I say, is the God who sent me, may reveal the spiritual state and decay of the Israelites after 400 years in Egypt. So think of the plagues this way. Think of them as strategic strikes against polytheism. Strategic strikes against polytheism. For example, the first plague, dealing with the Nile, is connected to the god Hapi. The frogs is connected to the god Heket. There's different gods for various cattle, but just one to give you now is the bull, or is Apis. The sun, Re, and even Pharaoh himself was thought of as a deity. And so, what's happening is not so much a divine power display. Go ahead, Carissa.
Sorry. I was just wondering, so every time God said that he hardened the Pharaoh's heart, so did he know that he was going to do all 10? Then
that's an excellent question. There's some difficult passages there. You read about Pharaoh hardening his own heart, and you also read about God hardening his heart. And so, what does it mean for God to harden his heart? Now, you asked a couple questions. One, did he know? On the one hand, now, these are questions that have been discussed many, many times over. You can find volumes on grace and free will and different ways of looking at this question. On the one hand, did he know is an easier question. If, as we believe that God is outside of time, is in eternity, then you might say, and this is the way Aquinas put it, is that for God, eternity is an eternal now. There's really not past, present, and future for God, at least not the way it is for us, because that is wrapped up with a changing temporal world. Now, okay, why say that? Well, if you stood up right now and broke that window, I'm watching you do it. I know you're doing it, but I'm not causing you to do it. So if God can see everything, that's different than saying He's causing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I make a distinction between His knowledge and His bringing it about. Does that make sense? So in other words, Grace? Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, this will come up again. Yeah, There are different gods for various cattle, but I'll just give you one that's pretty well known. He's connected with a bull. B-U-L-L. So Chris, on the one hand, there's the did he know he was going to do a question? I think the more difficult question is, what is his role in Pharaoh's hardening of his heart? That's where it's like, oh gosh, how do we deal with this? I think of it this way. Imagine God as the sun, and imagine on the one hand, say, wax. If we're like wax, we're disposed to be like wax, we'll melt in God's purposes. We'll be transformed and configured to His will. But if we're like clay, we'll be hardened. The difference then would be not on God's end, but our end. The sun's the same. The sun still beats down, the rays come forth. If we're disposed like clay, we'll be hardened. In other words, if we're like clay, His love will harden us, because we don't want it. We're not open to it. If we're like wax, we'll melt. Clearly, we verge on the point of mystery here. How God relates to the world, how an infinite, eternal being relates to a finite, contingent world, especially with 3 human beings in it, is, as I said, there's volumes you could find on it. But I think what you could say, especially in light of Revelation, is that there are certain things that need to be accepted, one of which is free will. One thing the Catholic Church clearly, explicitly rejects, and the vast majority of the Christian tradition rejects, is that God causes anyone to sin. It sounds like you guys playing Divine Nintendo, then, if that's really what's going on. Right? And you might think of it this way. Here's one way to think of it. If God is the source of all truth, then He Himself can't make a contradiction come true. And that's not a defect, but that's a perfection. So He can't make 2 + 2 = 5, not because He's impotent, but because eternal mathematical truths have their source in His mind and His being, etc. Likewise, you might say, have 3 human beings, which are really free, and are called to do certain things by God, would be a contradiction. You see what I'm saying? So you might say, God couldn't create a world with 3 human persons who could not reject Him. You see what I'm saying? So free will has to be a part of it. So there's more we can say, but I would say what you have to do is kind of step back and have sound theological lenses as you read, and realize that we can't say that God simply made him sin. And there's millions of ways people have tried to understand how this can be the case and whatnot. Again, one image I think I found helpful is this: that God is the sun and clay and wax. So then, in other words, it's not just Pharaoh's decisions in the moment, but how has he hardened himself over his whole life? How has he built his life around pride? And in the beginning he says, "Who is the Lord? Who is Yahweh? Why should I care?" So he's already, from the get-go, hardened in some respects. So I would say, best to say, he put himself in the disposition that when face to face with God's love, he's over here. So you could say God hardened him and Pharaoh hardened himself, but there was the becoming like clay in the first place that would make God enter the picture at all. Does that help?
Yeah.
Great question, though. Excellent question.